Attending an interview is a success whether or not you are hired for that particular job. You have qualifications that were worthy of the interviewer's time, you prepared well, and you met the challenge of presenting yourself one-on-one to a potential employer. Making the most of every interview means that you view each one as an experience that provides opportunities to improve your presentation skills and to learn more about the healthcare world. This knowledge can help you in future interviews and work-related situations such as performance evaluations. When you leave the interviewer's office, you may be glad it's over, and it may be the last thing you want to think about, especially if you don't think you did well. However, this is the best time to spend thinking about and evaluating the experience and your performance. Using an interview evaluation sheet will help you focus on the important factors that determine the success of an interview and create a plan for improvement. Create this improvement plan and practice so you'll feel more confident at the next interview. Part of this week's homework assignment will be to fill out the post-interview self-evaluation using your mock interview experience from last week. Also, your prescription for success on 15.1 on page 282. One last thing, even if you believe you will receive a job offer, and you may very well, but don't cancel or turn down other interviews until you have been formally hired. You may find something even better before this one is offered. Thank you letters. Let's talk a little bit about that. Whether the interview went like a dream or like a nightmare, send a thank you note. This is a courtesy that many job seekers don't do. It is a simple action and can set you apart from all the others. Why would you write a letter to a company at which you don't want to work? That's a big question. Well, I'll tell you why. The employer may know someone who is hiring. Impressed by your follow-up, he or she may recommend you. This could be a recommendation for an opening for a job that you do want when it becomes available at the facility. You are definitely remembered for your thoughtfulness if you send a thank you card. And at this time, when courtesy and consideration for others are declining, it's just the right thing to do. It is highly recommended that you send a handwritten or typed note through the mail. Emailed letters may get lost in with other numerous messages. If you really want the job, take the time to write a thank you plus letter. The plus refers to a paragraph or two in which you do at least one of the following. Briefly summarize your qualifications as they relate to the job and as it was discussed in the interview, or point out specifically how you can make a positive contribution based on details of what you've learned. Let the employer know you want the job and hope to be a candidate selected, and always include your full name and your telephone number. Alert your references. If you have left a reference sheet with the interviewer, call your references as soon as possible to tell them that they may receive that call. You should have already asked for permission to use them prior to the interview, but give them a heads up. You also want to make sure that you give them the job title, nature of the work, and the type of the facility that we'll be calling. This gives your references an opportunity to stress those features that best support your bid for the job. All right, when to call back. Let's talk about that. Following up after an interview, it's kind of a balancing act. You don't want to be considered a pest by calling too soon or too frequently. But on the other hand, you took the time to attend the interview, and you have the right to be informed when the hiring decision is made. A follow-up call just tells the employer that you are both motivated and interested in the job. The best strategy is to wait until the day after you were told a decision would be made. Never express impatience about a delay. You don't want them to think that that they are wasting your time. And you want to show interest, but you don't want to pressure the employer for a decision that he or she is maybe not ready to make yet. All right, jobs are not usually offered on the spot during the first interview. If this does happen, it is a good idea to ask when a decision is needed and say that you are very interested if you are, but you need a little time to make a decision. There are exceptions, of course. You may have performed your externship at the facility that you're interviewing for, and you know for sure that this is the place that you want to work. In this case, the interview may be a formality, and it makes sense to accept the position immediately. Interviewers will usually give you a time range during which a hiring decision will be made. If you'll take a look at box 15.1 on page 286 in your textbook, you'll find some questions to guide the job selection process. Remember in chapter 12, we discussed how the job market is affected by various economic and governmental conditions. When the employment rate is high, you can't be too choosy. When the employment rate is low, you can afford to be a little more selective. Most career experts recommend that you do not discuss salary with a potential employer until you have been offered the job. In many cases, this won't be an issue because the salaries are predetermined and not negotiable. Some occupations have labor unions, and the employer cannot change agreed on salaries for specific positions. If a salary range is given for a position, the amount offered to you will most likely depend on the experience that you bring to the job. New graduates, unfortunately, tend to start at the lower end of the range, earning more as they gain experience. A job offer may be extended in a telephone call, at a second or even third job interview, possibly even in a letter. It is essential that you understand the following: the exact duties that you will be required to perform. If you haven't seen a written job description, ask for it now. If there is no written description, ask for a detailed oral explanation if this wasn't already covered in the interview. Be sure you are clear about the exact start date and time that you are to report at work. Know your schedule, what days and hours your shift will be, what your salary is. If you are quoted a rate that you aren't familiar with, you might want to convert it to one you know. Know when orientation is and what training will be provided. You may have also received all of this information in the interview. However, don't hesitate to ask about anything you don't fully understand. On this slide, this is just pretty much a conversion chart for you to look at, kind of to help you see how you could change or convert your annual salary into an hourly rate. And then you can see here how what your total would be approximately, and whether you were paid monthly, bi-weekly, weekly, hourly. So this is a nice little chart to look at if you're unfamiliar with how to break down to calculate what you would be making. All right, understanding your work schedules. Some facilities, such as hospitals or trauma centers, are staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In addition to a regular 40-hour week, there are also other schedules that are common in healthcare. 40-hour week is obviously a full-time job. Part-time would be considered a regularly scheduled employment, but it would be working less than 40 hours per week. Then they offer a per diem, which is also known as a PRN position. This is a temporary to fill in for an absence position. So if someone calls in sick, they might reach out to you, or if someone wants to take vacation, they would reach out to you to see if you would be available those particular days. Flex time. These are variations in start and in departure time. So they may need you to come in and work 10:30 to 7 one day. The next time they may have you come in and work 6:30 to 3. you may come in and work an 8:30 to 5. So flex time are just a variation of different start and end times. And then you have your casual work hours, and that is when work is done on an irregular basis. So those are different types of work schedules that are offered in the medical field. All right, your benefits. Benefits can represent a significant portion of your compensation. Health insurance, as you guys most know already, can cost hundreds of dollars per month for a family of four. If full family coverage is offered by an employer, this may be worth thousands of dollars each year. So, on top of all your health care and all the insurance that they offer, there are other benefits as well, but keep in mind the amount that the employer covers and goes into each employee for these benefits. If you are planning on to continue your education, which I know a few of you are, tuition benefits might be important to you. Most larger hospitals and some of the smaller facilities as well do have tuition reimbursement. Some facilities now pay you for your holidays, so you don't need to use your PTO. You will also accumulate a certain amount of paid time off each pay period that you can use for vacation days or on sick days. When considering the compensation offered by an employer, think in terms of the total package. One job may offer a higher hourly rate, but require you to pay a larger part of your health insurance premium. Or you may end up financially ahead by accepting a lower salary job. On the other hand, if you are included on your spouse's group insurance plan, this might not be significant. Salary alone should not be the determining factor when deciding whether a job pays enough. So make sure that you're looking at everything that this employer offers and you're bringing all of it to the table. All right, accepting an offer. When you accept a job, express appreciation and enthusiasm. That's very important. In addition to responding orally and letting them know by mouth, you want to write a letter of acceptance as well. It's very professional. It should include a summary of what you understand the terms of the employment to be. And when speaking with the employer, inquire about any necessary follow-up activities. It is good to disclose any future commitments or other factors that will affect your work. And it's also just a sign of integrity to make important disclosures before the hiring process is completed. If the employer does refuse to accommodate you, it is better to learn now that this job lacks flexibility regarding family needs. So that might be something you want to take into consideration. For example, suppose the work hours that they're hiring for are 8 to 5, and you have a 3-year-old child who cannot be left at daycare before 7:45, and it takes you 25 minutes to drive to work. Well, it's better to ask if you can work from 8:30 to 5:30 than to take a position and arrive to it late every day. So you definitely want to discuss things with them and negotiate conditions. There may be conditions you want to negotiate. So if you'll take a look at figure 15.5 on page 289 of your book, you'll actually see an example of an employment agreement. And if you are provided with this agreement, you definitely want to read it over carefully and fill it out accurately because it can serve as a legally binding document. Be sure to ask questions if you don't understand something. All right, what to expect. Let's talk about what to expect once you're hired. So once you're hired, employers can ask questions that were unacceptable during the hiring process. The information that cannot be used in making a hiring decision, such as your age or your proof of citizenship, marital status, etc., things like that. Those things can't be asked when making a hiring decision, but they are requirements that you will have to provide once you've been hired. There also will most likely be mandatory health tests and immunizations as well. In addition, some employers, most employers today require drug tests and background checks for all employees. So be prepared for that. before you go out there into the field. All right, so turning down a job offer. After careful consideration, you may decide not to accept a job offer, and that's okay. It is not necessary to explain your reasons to the employer. However, do express your appreciation and your thanks for the opportunity, and do send a thank you note still. Um, in addition to it being an expression of courtesy, this leaves a positive impression on the employer because you just never know. You may want to reach out to them in the future for another position that comes up. So don't burn that bridge. Not that you would burn the bridge by not sending a thank you note, but it's just respectful. It can be very difficult when you are not selected for a job that you really want. There are many reasons why applicants don't get hired. Some you can't change and must simply accept, such as perhaps there was another applicant with more experience or skills, or perhaps they decided to hire from within. Perhaps the employer loved that someone else was a much better match for the organization, or potentially from budget cuts or other unexpected events that prevent anyone from being hired at that time. If you lost this opportunity for reasons you can change, do an honest self-review of your post-interview evaluation, school record, and your resume. Work on creating a winning attitude that will help you develop the interviewing skills it takes to get hired. Seek support from friends and family members if you are feeling down. Although you may not feel enthusiastic about writing a note to an employer who chooses another applicant, consider this. You may have come in as a close second. So I would go ahead and send that thank you letter. Either way, there may be another position they could consider you for. All right, so make it a point to learn something from every interview that you sit through. Always write thank you notes. Consider all aspects of a job when deciding whether it is the one for you, and be willing to listen to any constructive criticism offered and to make any needed changes. All right, guys, I will see you in a few on Zoom.